Okay, so this video is to show you the esophagus. So I had to take off the lungs and the heart in order to show you where the esophagus is. The esophagus is highlighted in blue, this long tube running along posteriorly in the thorax near the spine. Just kind of turn them around so you can get an idea of where the esophagus sits. So we have to keep in mind, we can't take our patient's lungs and heart out just so we can get a nice good picture of the esophagus. We also have the sternum sitting in the way, right in line with the esophagus. So what does that tell us? It tells us that these structures in an AP or PA X-ray will be superimposed over one another because they're in line with each other anteriorly to posteriorly. So they would be superimposed. So that's why for the esophagram images, we place the patient in an RAO. I'm going to put the heart back on just for a second so you can see where the heart is also going to be there. So we'll have sternum, heart, superimposing the esophagus. So what we do for this position is we turn the patient into an oblique. We turn them into an RAO. So we're imagining that the patient is turning. Let me see if I can make it work this way. We'll have to look through the spine here. I may have to hide some of that. Let's see. Because our patient will be in a PA projection RAO position for, the RAO esophagram imaging. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the patient, take the spine away from the esophagus, try to show, let's see if I can fade this out. My goodness, there's so much that I'm going to have to fade out for you to see the spine. So this just gives you a really good idea of how many things are going to superimpose that esophagus if we don't get our rotation right. So I'm just going to fade as many of these out as I can just to kind of show you where the esophagus is here. So we're trying to find this, see, that's here, that esophagus, okay? So I'll keep that light highlighted so that we can follow where it is. So here it will be superimposed right through the spine, okay? So what we do is we rotate them into an RAO to take the spine away from the esophagus and also bring the esophagus so that's in between the shadow of the heart. You can see part of the heart muscle here. Try to highlight the parts of the heart. See, so that would be the left atrium of the heart here that I highlighted. So we want to turn the patient so that we can get the esophagus, highlight the esophagus again, in between the shadow of the heart and the shadow of the spine on our x-ray. That way we know that, the esophagus has as little superimposition as we can possibly get from those two very, very thick structures, the thick muscle of the heart and the thick bones of the vertebra. So that's the purpose of that rotation into RAO position, to take the esophagus, rotate it away from the spine, and so that it will land in between this heart shadow and the spine on our x-ray. If we rotate the patient into an LAO, you can see what's going to happen. Let me hide this little guy. All right. So it's the way that the heart is situated in the body. If we put them in an LAO, that esophagus will still be superimposed by the heart. So that's why the RAO position is more preferred. Here, there. All right. So RAO kind of, because the heart's already on the left a little bit, so we're just kind of rotating that heart over to a little bit further left so that we can get that esophagus to show in between the heart and the spine. Notice that the esophagus is rotating toward the patient's left side. The esophagus is rotating towards the patient's left side. The spine is rotating towards the patient's right side. The spinous processes are starting to point towards the right side as we rotate them into RAO. And then we see the esophagus free of superimposition of the heart as well as the spine vertebra.